All right, thank you all for your patience. Thanks for joining today. Chris, I think we're just about to get started. I will start with a bit of housekeeping before we jump in, introduce ourselves, and go through the agenda. So again, really glad that you're all taking some time out to talk with us today. Someone's saying no audio in the chat. Chris, can you just confirm that you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. We'll assume that other audio issues are particular. So in terms of housekeeping, thank you to other folks for confirming. We'll mention some other housekeeping. So this meeting is being recorded, and the recording should be available on Walmart's Sustainability Hub afterwards. We can make the slides available on request as well. So feel free to reach out if you want to follow up and receive the slides. I'd say, if you want to reach us during the webinar itself, I see that lots of folks have figured out the chat function over here. For more specific questions or sort of content questions, I'd say I'd encourage you to use the Q&A function. Wanted to open the chat as well, since Chris and I might drop a couple of links there as well. But the Q&A is a little bit more easier to monitor. So feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A. That's the little box with the question mark, should be in your WebEx. And we can try to follow up during the webinar itself. And if not, we'll try to follow up afterwards. And already seeing some questions coming in the Q&A. And again, I'll try to answer them as they come in. So in terms of the slides, there'll be some contact information and emails at the end of the webinar, and you can reach out to one of us. So today you'll be hearing from myself. I'm Jeremy Edelman. I'm an account manager on the supply chain team at CDP North America, as well as from Chris Brooks, Director of Sustainability at Walmart. And I'll let Chris introduce himself and present on Walmart's own sustainability in just a moment. Before I do, I just want to walk you through the agenda for what we'll be talking about today. So again, we'll start with Chris presenting on Walmart's supply chain sustainability goals and Project Gigaton. And then I'll take you the rest of the way, giving you an overview of CDP, talking about the target questions for suppliers in this year's CDP questionnaires, how to use CDP data for Project Gigaton, CDP Disclosure 2022 and some support that CDP provides, as well as Walmart. And then, of course, leaving more time for questions. But again, encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. So I think with that, Chris, I'll pass it over to you and let you present on Walmart's own goals.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Just kicking off with this antitrust slide, the guidelines here. I won't read word for word through this, but if you have any questions, please contact your own company's legal counsel. Just highlighting that the Q&A or the chat functions there if you do need to ask any questions going through the session. So with that, let's jump straight in. First of all, just framing up why we have put on this session with CDP. We know that a large number of the Walmart suppliers use the CDP platform. We encourage you to use the CDP platform, and hopefully you've had more outreach than ever this year. And the aim of this session is to make your lives a little bit easier and explain the interoperability between the CDP platform and the Project Gigaton platform. So at the end of this session today, hopefully you'll come away with a clear understanding of how that works and how it complements Project Gigaton. So just setting the scene around some of Walmart's goals and what we're working on to become a regenerative company. So we're on the path to becoming a regenerative company, one that helps people live better and sustain our planet. So our sustainability efforts prioritize people and the planet, aiming to source responsibly, reduce waste and emissions, and sell sustainable products that protect and restore nature. So most of the audience here probably know, but this isn't just the right thing to do for society, it's also good for business. And we, as a business, our customers expect us to do the right thing And we want to play our part in this. And a big part of that is working with our suppliers to advance our sustainability efforts. So on this slide, you see the various goals we have, some for our own operations and some with our supply chain. And Project Gigaton encapsulates the climate goal around a gigaton of greenhouse gas emissions, and also reporting towards our nature goal around 50 million acres of land and 1 million square miles of ocean being protected, managed, or restored by 2030. Moving forward, jumping into the specifics on Project Gigaton. So when we talk about Project Gigaton, like, what is it? It is an engagement tool. It's for our suppliers, and it allows you to understand and report progress. And more than ever, we're seeking to develop tools that help you guys go faster, make reporting easier, and allow better engagement and training and sharing of knowledge. And it's specifically focused around climate, nature, and also people coming into that this year. A lot of times people ask, well, what is the gigaton? So it's the equivalent of taking 211 million passenger vehicles off the road for an entire year. On the next slide, you'll see how Gigaton works. So summary of how we're getting on so far. So we're 5 years into Project Gigaton, and we're over halfway there. We've got 4,500 suppliers signed on, representing over 70% of the Walmart US sales, those suppliers that are engaging. And we split this down into the 6 pillars that you see on this slide. And there's a variety of calculators and reporting tools that allow you to understand the impact of changes you can in these spaces ahead of reporting, and also it allows you to report. And the important thing we're going to cover today is how, if you've reported to CDP, you can make your life a little bit easier, and that data can flow through into Project Gigaton and be mapped across to those pillars. And then you can go in and see the data and maybe add in some more granularity over additional things that didn't go into CDP, so that your reporting this year looks as good as it possibly can be. So just quickly on those pillars, in the energy pillar, you've got things like renewable energy, energy efficiency. Within the nature pillar, you've got certified products, commodities, place-based projects, regenerative agriculture, forestry, things like that within the nature pillar. Waste, about solid waste reduction, around recycling, around composting. One of the most popular pillars at the moment around packaging, changes there around recycled content, reduction in packaging amount, and recyclability. And then a new pillar for last year around transportation. So how can we optimize shipping? There's some calculators in there, and also the zero emissions vehicles and general efficiency improvements. Finally, the product use pillar as design optimization. So how can products be redesigned to use less material, to use recycled material, to use maybe less energy in their lifespan? There's a series of calculators. And we work closely with CDP, with the Environmental Defence Fund, and with the World Wildlife Fund to develop calculators that blend simplicity with credibility, so that you guys can use them to understand the impacts of things that you're changing. So that was a really quick 5-minute tour through Gigaton. There will be more training courses ahead of the survey season that we'll put on, detailed ones around how to report and specific guidance in certain areas. So watch your inbox for those. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Jeremy.
Terrific. Thanks, Chris. Maybe before I let you off the hook for a moment, you can either answer maybe in the Q&A live or perhaps in the Q&A function. But there's a question from a participant. Is using the CDP platform a new Walmart requirement for suppliers not currently using it? So feel free to, if you want to answer live, or if you prefer to type it out, either way works.
I'll answer that one live. So we're encouraging suppliers to use CDP because we see the benefit in doing that. And increasingly within Gigaton, we want to link to external reporting tools because we don't want our suppliers to have to duplicate effort. Now, we also understand that CDP might not suit all of you. We encourage you to do it. And hopefully with this webinar, you'll see more detail and you can start your sustainability journey. So if it's too much for you to complete it for this year. Have it on the plan, work towards it in future years, but still report your data into Gigaton.
Thanks, Chris. And on that note, I'll just mention the more information and any information that you can possibly report through CDP is still useful. So we're focusing on some target questions this year, and one of them will show how CDP and Gigaton link. And I see that's a question in the Q&A as well. So we'll touch on that. But yeah, to Chris's point, if you're not totally ready for a complete and comprehensive response to CDP, try to answer as much as possible. That's any information is better than none. So with that, and with that terrific introduction from Chris, I think I'll jump into the CDP overview. And please continue to ask questions in the Q&A. I see some great ones coming through, and Chris and I can continue to monitor that through the rest of the webinar. So CDP, for those who are not familiar, is a global environmental nonprofit. We're the world's largest environmental disclosure platform. And we work with companies as well as city, states, and regions to measure and manage environmental impacts. We're often seen as the gold standard of environmental reporting, specifically on the E of the ESG in environmental, social, and governance reporting. And once companies and cities, states, and regions disclose their environmental information through CDP, our investors as well as purchasers such as Walmart and policymakers around the globe use our data to make better informed decisions. So that is the general theory of change and the way of working at CDP. And you might be wondering, well, what are the benefits for our company to participate? Understand how it could benefit CDP, how it could benefit Walmart, but why should we submit to CDP on the climate change or the forest disclosure or questionnaires this year? And there are a bunch of benefits to participating, and I've listed a few of them here. So the first is measuring and reducing your environmental impact and benchmarking yourself against your peers. CDP is all about measuring your environmental impact by going through the questionnaire and understanding what questions are being asked, what the drop downs are, what sort of topics are front of mind for your buyers, for your investors. You can understand what your environmental impact is and perhaps identify some opportunities as well. If you submit by July 27th this year, which is the scoring deadline, just in 2 weeks, you will receive, almost certainly, you'll be eligible to receive a score from our third-party independent scoring partners, and you'll receive a score report along with that, which will help benchmark your score and your submission against the others in your industry. So another very useful tool that comes with just submitting to CDP by the scoring deadline. Identifying cost savings. A terrific part of sustainability is that improving your bottom line and reducing emissions or improving your environmental footprint often go hand in hand. So using the questionnaire to essentially take stock of where you can save some money and hopefully improve your environmental performance. And that goes with identifying risks and opportunities, the next thing on this list. Proposing collaborative opportunities and increased value from customer relationships. I think that's a very valuable opportunity in our questionnaire. That is something that you can do in the supply chain module, which is the last section of any of these questionnaires. And I'll touch a little bit more on the supply chain module, but suffice it to say for now that the answers in that module are specific to the buying customer, the supply chain member, in this case, Walmart, that you are answering the questions for. And you can provide collaborative opportunities specific to Walmart. CDP puts a high focus and high value on transparency. We strongly encourage you to disclose publicly, to hold yourselves accountable, to stakeholders, to your buying customers, and beyond. And again, we understand that these questionnaires can be comprehensive and they're very thorough, but we do try to streamline it by making it one response for all of the customers and stakeholders that are requesting your information. How does CDP operate? How does it work? We have our investor signatories. These are large asset managers that generally request large publicly traded companies to submit to CDP. And we have our supply chain members, including Walmart. Walmart is one of our founding members. And these supply chain members, these purchasing customers request information from their suppliers. And you can see last year, this year we have over 40,000 companies that are requested from one or multiple of these requesting authorities, as we call them. Suppliers, companies submit to CDP. They provide data through the questionnaires. CDP puts these data products together from the data submitted by your companies, and then we provide those to the investor signatories, to those asset managers, and to our supply chain members. We have 3 questionnaires depicted by these icons on the right: climate change, forests, and water. And Walmart is requesting that you submit your disclosure on climate change, and a subset of companies here might have also been requested to submit the forests questionnaire as well. Just quickly showing you some of the 280 or so global supply chain members that we have. You'll recognize a lot of these brands, large corporate brands. And just wanted to mention that these companies, including Walmart, just span the range of industries. They run the gamut in terms of industries, in terms of members that are engaging their suppliers through CDP. And that's because companies all over the world and of all sorts of shapes and sizes are understanding that they need to engage suppliers to create a more sustainable supply chain. And also just to mention that your company might have been requested by not just Walmart, but by Walmart and other supply chain members as well. And again, it is just one response to all of these requesting customers. So when I'm talking about these questionnaires, what sort of information are we really talking about? We're talking about both qualitative and quantitative information. You can see in the climate change questionnaire over here, we have qualitative pieces like governance, risks and opportunities, and strategy. Even targets moves a little bit into the quantitative side, and then more quantitative pieces like emissions reporting, energy, verification of those emissions, carbon pricing. Engagement with suppliers can be a little bit more qualitative. And the forests, similarly, both qualitative and quantitative. So your current state in terms of what you are consuming or producing, procedures that you might have, governance and strategy, risks and opportunities, implementation, verification and challenges, certification schemes. And to note, our forest questionnaire works based on forest risk commodities, mostly timber, palm, cattle, and soy are the main ones. There are a few others. You can see rubber there, as well as coffee and cocoa are unscored ones, and there'll be a little bit more information about that soon. In both the climate change and the forest questionnaire, we have this supply chain module, which is what I was referring to earlier. I wanted to spend a moment here so that we all understand what the supply chain module is. That's just the last section of these questionnaires. It's a set of about 4 questions or so. And that's the only part of the questionnaire that you would need to answer once per requesting customer. So for instance, if you are requested by Walmart and 2 other purchasing customers, all of the questions in the questionnaire you will only answer once, except the supply chain module you will have to answer 3 times. And that's because the supply chain module is not public. It is confidential and visible and accessible only to that purchasing customer, which you choose from the drop down. So you'll get to this section, you'll choose Walmart from the drop down, you'll allocate emissions to Walmart, you can provide collaborative opportunities, product and service level data, certified volume of forest risk commodities sold to Walmart, things like that. And again, of course, only Walmart will see that information. And if you're requested by another supply chain member, you'll do that same part. You'll answer those same questions for the next purchasing customer. I see lots of questions coming in through the Q&A and through the chat. We'll do my best to try to get to some of those a little bit later on, if there are for CDP. If they're for Walmart, Chris, maybe you could take a stab at some of those right now. So that was the overview of CDP. We're going to move into the target questions for suppliers. So this is a really important section. I want everyone to hopefully pay attention a little bit more closely for this part, where we're going through the key questions that Walmart really would like you to pay attention to. And if you are resource constrained, or if this questionnaire is a little bit too long for, if you're an SME or whatever other reason, start with these and then work your way beyond. Gotcha. Let me do one thing here and see if I can provide access to Chris. Chris, I just made you a co-host. Hopefully that helps you see the Q&A. If not, no worries, and I can try to tackle those later. Great. So here are, again, these priority questions in the climate change questionnaire is what we'll start with. First, disclosing to CDP and preferably publicly. And, even before you submit, just start by confirming your intention or activating the questionnaire. It's a great start just to signal to Walmart that you are hoping to submit to CDP and can just provide some information to Walmart in terms of the engagement that they might have with you further on. Once you have chosen to disclose to CDP, you can start on your emissions accounting and reporting. And we're talking about reporting your Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. Of course, that's your operational emissions and your purchased energy emissions. That's Scope 1 is operational, Scope 2 purchased energy, and hopefully verifying those emissions if possible. So you could see these related questions here. C6.1 is your Scope 1, C6.3 is your Scope 2, and verification of these emissions is in section C10. Reporting emissions is really best practice and really the prerequisite to understanding and reducing negative environmental impact across your organization. Once you've understood and accounted for your emissions at a corporate level, you can then allocate emissions to Walmart so that Walmart can understand its piece, its responsibility, essentially, for because of its business relationship with your company. And you can do so in a couple of places. In section C6, question C6.10, that's where you can offer an emissions intensity. So something like metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per dollar of revenue, or per full-time equivalent, or per volume of product sold, something like that. Even better is if you can fully allocate your emissions in the supply chain module in SC 1.1. And if you ask for the slides, we have a link here to the CDP webinar on how to allocate emissions. And I also have a working example coming up in just a few slides. Once you've understood your emissions, then you have the baseline, then you can set a target to reduce those emissions. So you can do that in sections C4.1 and C4.1A and B, reporting any climate target, and then specifically an emissions reduction target, and especially and hopefully a science-based target, ideally through the SBTI, the Science Based Targets Initiative. So you can report on all of that in section C4. And of course, once you have a target, you need to take initiatives and take action toward reducing emissions to meet that target. And now this is the key here. This is question C4.3, specifically question C4.3b. This is the one question in the CDP questionnaire that links directly to Project Gigaton and your reporting through Project Gigaton. So it's very important to respond to this question in terms of your emissions reduction activities. And it's very important for Walmart to understand the actions you're taking to reduce your emissions so that it can tally toward the goal of reducing and avoiding a gigaton of emissions by 2030. So please take your time and make sure to fully and accurately and completely answer C4.3b. Some more information on that coming up in a moment as well. The final two priorities in terms of the climate change questionnaire is reporting on your renewable energy usage in C8.2 and C8.2a. 8.2a is a table that has a column for renewable energy, a column for non-renewable energy, rows for the various types of energy, such as electricity or heat, cooling, steam. So please take your time and try to answer this section fully and make sure that the columns are adding up to 100% of your energy usage, that your renewable plus your non-renewable is your total energy consumption. And finally, back in that supply chain module in SC 2.1, that is where you can offer collaborative opportunities to Walmart. Again, that it will only be visible to Walmart and is a perfect opportunity to offer a new product or a service that you think Walmart would be the right buyer for in terms of reducing emissions or having a positive environmental impact on your company and on Walmart's supply chain. So sticking with the conversation around emissions and priority questions for the climate change questionnaire, this is a simple working example of how to allocate emissions. And this example is by spend, or essentially by revenue from your side. And so just looking at this bottom pink box here, this working example, you can see in that middle right there, what you're doing is creating a proportion of the revenue earned from your contract or from your business relationship with Walmart. So these are just made up numbers here. Let's say you have $500,000 revenue from Walmart and you're a company of $200 million total revenue. So you create that proportion and then just multiply by your entire absolute scope 1, for example, 100,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And you will get, in this example, your allocated emissions to Walmart of 250 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. You'll repeat that exact process for your scope 2 emissions as well. For those of you who have been requested by Walmart to submit the forest questionnaire, and there are a handful of criteria for why Walmart chose various companies to be requested on the forest questionnaire this year. We have 4 priorities. We understand this is probably a new request for many of you out there. So please take your time, try to answer these 4 questions, and of course, anything beyond that is terrific as well. So first, publicly disclosing, the same as in the climate change questionnaire. The forest questionnaire works based on commodities. So in this question F0.4, this impacts all of the questions that will be shown to you in the rest of the questionnaire. So please disclose, tell us which commodities you are exposed to and which you are disclosing on. And these commodities are anything that your organization produces, sources, or uses. And you can see we have some scored commodities, meaning CDP will score your responses if you are disclosing on these commodities. So that's timber, palm oil, cattle products, and soy, and non-scored commodities. CDP still allows you to submit on these, but you will not receive a score. That's rubber, cocoa, and coffee. The second priority here is reporting commodity production and or consumption data. Of course, that's sort of the equivalent of reporting your emissions. So collecting data of production and consumption volumes reflects best practice and provides context about your operations and supply chain. Next is a public forest commitment. So you can see this mirrors all of the climate change questionnaire priorities. First was emissions and then setting a target. Similar here, understanding your production and consumption data, and then setting a forest commitment, which signals progress towards sustainable forest stewardship. And then finally, talking about traceability and certification. This, of course, is very important to track and monitor the origin of raw materials, and essential to understand forest-related risks, both for your own organization as well as for Walmart. I'm going to pause for a moment. I see there are lots and lots of questions. See if I can see if there's anything quick that was related to any of the content I just presented on.
Yeah, Jeremy, there's quite a few questions in there. I've tried to answer a few as we're going through, and I'll keep up with them.
Great. Thank you. Do you need to make your response public to receive a scorecard? No, you could receive a score even if you respond privately. How does CDP compare to the Science-Based Targets Initiative? CDP is one of the 4 founding members of the Science-Based Targets Initiative. SBTI is actually comprised of 4 partner organizations, and CDP is one of those 4. It's sort of the data collecting arm of the SBTI. But reporting through CDP helps purchasing customers like Walmart track if you are setting a science-based target, but the actual process of setting a science-based target should go through the Science-Based Targets Initiative. All right, I think I'm going to keep going for now, and hopefully can get to some of these questions later. So thank you as well, again, for asking some of these questions. If we don't get to it during the session, we'll follow up afterwards. I want to take a moment now to talk about how Project Gigaton and CDP link, and I understand this is of utmost interest for the audience here, and very important. And so we want to take a few moments and hopefully slowly and comprehensively explain how Project Gigaton is linked with your CDP reporting. This slide really lays it out very simply in 4 steps. The first two are related to CDP, and the second two are related to Project Gigaton. So the first one, report on emissions reduction activities in C.43b. And the next slide will explain the various types of information that we need in C4.3b to be considered a qualified response to be able to link to Gigaton. And you need to do so, and you need to submit your CDP response by July 27th. That is the scoring deadline for this year. We understand it's in a couple of weeks. But again, focus on C4.3b as your primary and priority question to respond to, followed by the other priority questions that I just presented. Once you do so, when Project Gigaton reporting opens in the fall, make sure to report to Project Gigaton between September 6th and November 5th. Log in, review, and submit your information. The information from C4.3b, if you submitted all of the required information and did so in a qualified manner, that will link directly to the various pillars in Project Gigaton and will pre-populate so that you can just review and submit that information. Of course, the final thing is add more detailed information to the Gigaton calculators because all we will have pulled in was the raw data that you submitted in C4.3b.
Jeremy, I just want to make the point on that last slide. This is the key slide, like to make it easier for the data to flow through. It's taking on board what's here. So specifically from that question 4.3b, that's mapped across to the Project Gigaton pillars when the data's there. And we've worked hard with the tech team here this year to make the user experience easier to understand on our end. So when you log in, the data should be there and there should be less need to give the permissions and other things. So you should see that there and just be able to go through reporting with a few questions and data already being filled in for you.
Thanks for the addition, Chris. Getting a little bit more granular and technical about what types of information we need in C4.3b, which fields need to be completed in order to link to Project Gigaton. You can see here that we need 6 different columns, essentially 5 with a strongly recommended 6th. And these are just columns in C4.3b that you would naturally be answering anyway, but we want to make sure that you have entered data into these columns. So that includes, when we're talking about emissions reduction initiatives, CDP has preset initiative categories. Based on the category you choose, we have some preset initiative types. We want to understand the estimated annual carbon dioxide equivalent savings in metric tons of CO2e, what scope that relates to, and then jumping to column 9, the estimated lifetime of the initiative, which is very important, and then column 10, a comment. And that's very useful if the previous 5 columns are not clear enough, but you can describe in your comment. Our team will be able to go through, and it is very helpful in being able to link information to Project Gigaton. So we strongly encourage you to offer a description of the initiative in column 10. Again, the deadlines for these are to submit to CDP with all of this information in question C4.3b by July 27th, and then to report via Project Gigaton between September 5th and November 5th in 2022 of this year, excuse me, September 5th or 6th perhaps, through November 5th of this year. Noting as well, the same project may only be reported through CDP and counted toward Project Gigaton once, so please do not report the same project over multiple reporting cycles unless the estimated lifetime is 1 year or less. So if you've already reported this project and it has a lifetime greater than a year, do not report that project again through CDP. Chris, if you could you drop the Project Gigaton guidance in the chat perhaps, or even that contact information so that folks can reach out to Walmart with any questions?
Yeah, I'll drop in the details.
Great. So this is what C4.3b looks like from the guidance perspective when you're actually answering it in the online response system. Of course, there'll be radio buttons and drop downs for you to actually answer, but just showing you the outline of the question. These are the columns that we're talking about. Initiative category, and I'm just going to read, I know it's small type, just giving you a couple examples. Energy efficiency in building, fugitive emissions reductions, low carbon energy generation, transportation, company policy, or behavior change. And once you choose that category, the initiative type, that second column, will populate with various options. If you find that in initiative type there are no provided options that are applicable to your initiative, there is an option to select Other, Please Specify, and you can provide details of the initiative type. You can see columns 3 and 4 with some options as well. Please answer those. And those final two columns, of course, estimated lifetime of the initiative and comment. And again, just bringing this back to the pillars, this information provided in C4.3b will be mapped to the proper pillar, and that's why the initiative category and type are so important. And as Chris did before, just providing, again, some of the types of data and initiatives that you might be thinking about: renewable energy, energy efficiency, regenerative agriculture, forestry, food and solid waste, recycling and composting, recycled content, recyclability and reduction, optimized shipping, zero emission vehicles, design optimization, sustainable sourcing. I know, just reading off that slide, but want to get the creative juices working, because your companies might be doing some of these things, but might not have considered that these are things that you can report via CDP, and they'll be linked to Project Gigaton. Going to go through some resources and support, and then we'll try to tackle the many questions. And again, thank you for your engagement throughout this session. Scoring deadline, I've mentioned multiple times, July 27th, just a couple of weeks from today. That's the primary thing to see on this slide. If you do submit by then and you're able to receive a score, you'll receive that score later in 2022, usually in the late fall or early winter through our CDP partner, third-party independent scoring partners. I want to mention here, since we talked about priority questions a handful of times, that Walmart does not expect your company to receive an A right now or even next year, hopefully eventually. But we do understand that sustainability is a journey for all companies, including Walmart. And that's why disclosure is really the first step on that journey. Disclosing to CDP, being accountable to your stakeholders, being transparent with your answers and with your current status, and then hopefully taking steps to become a leader in sustainability by reporting your emissions, setting a reduction target, taking action to reduce emissions, collaborating with your own, with your customers and perhaps your own suppliers to reduce emissions, and of course, the end goal, reducing emissions and advancing a low carbon economy. So if this sounds a little bit overwhelming, if it's a little bit, daunting to answer all of these questions, just remember that we do understand it's a journey, and disclosing to CDP is really the first step. A couple of technical slides coming up here, because to answer the questionnaire, you have to be able to access the questionnaire. So if you have not received a notification from CDP that you were requested, or you're having trouble accessing your questionnaire, it likely means that we need to have a registered contact for your organization in our database. And so you can fill out this join an organization form. And I'm actually just going to pull it up on the side for just one moment so I can also drop it into the chat. I'll do that right here. Right? So that's the registration form. And then you'll go to cdp.net essentially and sign in. And if you're having trouble logging in, you can contact our help center for support. And once you sign in and you have a registered contact, you will be shown your response dashboard, and you'll be able to activate the questionnaire. And this slide is very important. I'm also going to pull up this link here. And this is the CDP Help Center. That's your first point of contact for any questions related to accessing the questionnaire, how to answer the questionnaire, receiving some supportive resources that CDP has. If you have trouble accessing, if you're not sure, some dates, if you have a parent company and you're trying to figure out if they are responding on your behalf, all sorts of questions related to CDP and submitting to CDP. Go to the Help Center. We have knowledge base articles. It's a repository of self-help articles that you can hopefully answer your own question without having to wait for a response from CDP. But if you do need to reach out to us, you can create a case, reach out through our Help Center, and the Help Center has been really terrific this year, pretty quick turnaround times. Of course, it's a busy time of year at this point with the scoring deadline just a couple of weeks away. So if you do have questions, I encourage you to reach out earlier than later, and hopefully our team can support you. When you actually are in the questionnaire and responding, especially since we're encouraging you to respond by the scoring deadline, I just wanted to give you a quick offer of some tips in terms of how to answer qualitative responses. What we're looking for is company-specific responses. So if you're looking at this box on the right, a poor response, you can pretty much ignore the question. This is true across all qualitative responses. A poor response would be something like, rising mean temperatures have the potential to negatively affect our operations. That's probably true, but it is not company-specific. There's not much information. A good response on the right is something like 60% of our plants are located in this region, which is subject to large increases in mean temperature, which will impact our air conditioning, which will impact our operational costs. Much more specific, only a couple of extra sentences, but there's geography involved. There's a quantitative number there, and it sort of explains the mechanism of why increasing temperatures will actually impact your business. So that's the sort of information we're looking for qualitative responses. Some other best practices, of course, you want to avoid blank cells. Make sure that all of the, as I mentioned, for the energy reporting, all of the numbers that you enter follow logic and are consistent. Feel free to use our scoring methodology and reporting guidance. Our goal isn't to trip anyone up. The scoring methodology is public and the reporting guidance is public. You can use that alongside the questionnaire as you are responding to understand why we're asking the question, what we're looking for, and explore some external resources that might support you in answering that question. You can look at other companies' responses. So you can pull up Walmart's response from last year and understand how they answered this question and some of the things that they're doing, just to get a sense of how other companies are reporting to CDP. And then having a point person on your team, of course, is always a great idea. We have lots more support. We have, as I mentioned, that online guidance for suppliers. We have recorded webinars on Scope 1 accounting, on Scope 2 accounting, on some other topics as well. We have a roadmap to help you understand what might be the next step in your journey. If you've already, say, reported emissions, what might be the next step? Well, it might be verification of those emissions. So we have this terrific roadmap page on our website that helps you do that. Of course, reach out to the Help Center for any technical support, and you can stay abreast of CDP's webinars and events as well. Optimizing your disclosure experience, make sure that you allow emails from @cdp.net. We have found optimized use in the Google Chrome browser. Of course, as I mentioned, reviewing guidance and scoring methodology. If you have not heard or received an activation link or a notification from CDP, please reach out to the CDP Help Center as soon as possible. Again, that scoring deadline is just in a couple of weeks. This slide, extra important, who to reach out to if you have questions. I've already talked about the CDP Help Center a handful of times. If you have Gigaton or Walmart specific questions, please email this. Please email SU, or sort of corporate sustainability, at walmart.com, and they will be able to help answer any questions related to Project Gigaton, Walmart procurement, other things that are Walmart specific. Finally, again, just mentioning that scoring deadline of July 27th. Terrific. I see there are lots and lots of questions. I'm going to start trying to answer as many of these live as I can. So bear with me as Chris and I try to tackle these. And again, if we're not able to get to you live, I'll try to follow up afterwards. So I see a question here. We're a sourcing company and sourcing out textile products around the world from different manufacturers who are not owned by us, but working with us as business partners. Do you want us to get their environmental data? Currently focused on tier 1 suppliers. So this is really your business relationship with Walmart. Of course, if you can talk about your Scope 3 emissions, which is your supply chain emissions, that's helpful. But at the moment, we're really focusing on your operational and purchased energy emissions and other data as pertains to your corporate environmental performance.
Jeremy, there's just one to go back a slide so that it's got the contact details if you want to do that.
Yep, perfect. I'll leave this one up.
And the other question, there's quite a lot of comments on it, the slides being available on the recordings. So the recording is going to go on the Walmart Sustainability Hub. That'll be up there within about 2 weeks maximum. And the slides, Jeremy, I don't know what the plan is with them.
Chris, I wasn't sure if the Sustainability Hub could
yeah, I can
handle
put
the
them up
slides.
as well. If you're good with that, yeah, we'll put them up as well.
Oh, great. Okay. In that case, the recording and the slides should be available to be hosted on the Sustainability Hub. So terrific. Is there a way to allocate emissions without disclosing total sales or revenue? By disclosing sales or revenue, Walmart can determine the percentage of our business they make up, which is not always desirable. This shouldn't be too much of an issue. I understand sometimes there are considerations of privacy, but your sort of revenue earned from Walmart is the equivalent of Walmart sales, so that piece should be relevant. You can offer if you're extra cautious, or if there's any legal considerations. I'll mention that the vast majority of companies do not have any issue with this, but you can provide an emissions intensity. So that would be, again, that would be metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per dollar of revenue, or per some other metric in that denominator, and that would enable Walmart to do the allocation on their end as they see fit. Yes, you can do an allocation using different metrics. I was providing a revenue-based allocation. It's often the simplest and sort of easiest one to have that sort of data available. But if you want to do one based on weight of products sold to Walmart, I think that's totally useful as well. I see some questions about the slides. If you haven't received this official invite, the official invite is really more of a notification from CDP that you've been requested. If you haven't received that, reach out to the Help Center. Make sure to try to fill out that registration form so that your contact information is in our system. And if there are further issues, our operations team through the Help Center should be able to support you. Yes, there can be many registered contacts for one organization, and multiple contacts can actually be contributing to the same questionnaire. And there are different user roles. If you want some people in your organization just to have view or review only, some to be contributors, and every organization has one person that's called a main user, and that's the person responsible for actually submitting the questionnaire.
Just picking up, Jeremy, a few questions in related to thesis, gigaton, and CDP, and in terms of how they work. So we encourage CDP for a way to make the reporting easier to flow through, because we know a lot of our suppliers use CDP, and that flows through into gigaton. So that should make the process more straightforward. With thesis, we promote the use of thesis for suppliers that see value in using that tool. So it's up for you to decide on whether that assessment provides you valuable insight into your supply chain, but it's not mandated or anything by Walmart.
Great. I see a question, and I was trying to look it up on the side here. I see a question about if you choose to do verification of emissions after July 27th. We do actually make exceptions specifically for verification of emissions, and you will be able to amend your response afterwards without impacting your scoring. So please follow up with the CDP Help Center for more information, or actually the Help Center should have the amendment policy there, and that is contained in the amendment policy. Chris has a question here. If the first year of data is from 2020, but they don't have 2021 numbers, will that help them, or can they report that through Gigaton?
So the rules in relation to Gigaton reporting is you can select the annual period of reporting to what meets your needs. So it's any 12-month period, and that can be as old as 2 years old at the time of reporting. So that 2020 data would be okay to use this year, depending on the start date.
I see a sort of more technical question about two divisions of the same company reporting to Gigaton separately, but CDP reporting is at the corporate level. Probably reach out to corpsu@walmart.com, unless, Chris, you have an answer to that right away, but that sounds like a specific question that we can try to handle offline.
That the rule there should be the same as CDP. So the parent company should report for all of it, ideally. And if you reach out to Corp SU, that they can merge those accounts if the company's been bought or there's a parent company. And then you can just all have access to one account, and then we don't have any double counting.
Great. Seeing a question about what's a really ideal answer for C12.1A, which is give details of your climate-related engagement strategy with your suppliers. As I just mentioned, if you go to the CDP website, you can view, I think, up to 20 public responses. So I strongly encourage you to look at Walmart's response from last year. You can see what they're doing in terms of climate-related engagement strategy. Of course, Walmart has a very built-out answer to that question through Gigaton and through being a member of the CDP supply chain and so many other things. But that could give you some ideas of a well-crafted answer. And you can look at other companies that are maybe peers and competitors in your space as well.
I would just say, Jeremy, there's quite a few comments in relation to the slides and the recordings, and understanding that the deadline is looming for CDP. So yep. As soon as I get that recording, I'll try and get that uploaded quicker. So hopefully by the end of this week, that will be online with the slides.
Right, still sort of flowing through here. Yes, you can report privately. We do strongly encourage you to report publicly, but non-publicly is an option. There's a sort of specific question on RSPO and palm oil. Please reach out to the Corp SU at Walmart about specifics on getting credit for that. Wood toys likely do fall into the timber products. You can potentially reach out to the CDP Help Center for that question. Privately held companies do need to complete the CDP questionnaire. The questionnaire is not specific to publicly traded or privately held companies. Some questions about collecting data for forest land type and area percentage. I would say see the reporting guidance from CDP. Each of the types of information that we request in our questions, we have a definition for, and we sort of explain what we're looking for and some basic ways that you might be going about to identify that information. If you have not seen the Walmart supply chain request in your questionnaire, but you're seeing another CDP supply chain member, please reach out to that joint inbox that I dropped in the chat. That was it's sc.walmartstores@cdp.net. We can figure out if perhaps you were supposed to have a request from CDP, or perhaps you weren't requested by Walmart this year, but you might be added for next year. Question on who this information is public to. Your response, if public, is available publicly, as I'm sort of explaining now, and then other companies that have a login can access your response. But in terms of the actual data being provided, that will be provided to whichever of your requesting authorities have requested you. So if you are requested by the investor signatories, it will be provided to those asset managers. Otherwise, it will be provided to the purchasing customers that have requested your information, such as Walmart. Chris has a question about separating Walmart USA versus Walmart Mexico versus Walmart Canada for the supply chain module. Or can they just do Walmart as a total allocation? I'm assuming Walmart Global as Walmart Inc. is the answer.
Yes, so there may be the different requests that come from supply chain from Mexico and Walmart Inc. But all of the gigaton reporting, everything that flows through to that should be at the highest level, so global level. Yeah.
Yes, Walmart can review your CDP submission as soon as you submit it. And in terms of when you receive a rating or how, our scoring methodology is public. I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but your score will be received in late fall or early winter. It's a question of what type of verification. If that's related to verification of emissions, I'd say go to the reporting on CDP's website about question C 10.1, and you'll see all of the drop-down options in terms of third-party verification schemes that we accept. How do you get Scope 1 and 2 verified? You have to go through one of those certification schemes to get your verification of the emissions. If you are requested by both Walmart Corporation or Walmart Inc. and Walmart de Mexico, you will see both of those requests on your response dashboard. Same thing as any other supply chain member. You have one response that you need to submit, but you would need to allocate emissions a little bit differently, and they have a few other specifics in terms of what they're looking for in your submission. Is there a cost associated with using CDP? Great question. If you are requested by our investor signatories, there is an administrative fee. If you're asking that question or you're not sure, it's almost certain that your company is not being requested by investor signatories. Again, those are large publicly traded companies such as Walmart. To respond to a supply chain member, there is no fee associated with doing that, even if you were requested by 30 supply chain members. Again, there's a different conversation if you are investor requested, meaning you've been requested to submit on behalf of our investor signatories. Yes, you can respond to the minimum questionnaire. If you enter the forest CDP, it will not connect to the nature pillar of Project Gigaton.
I know I've only got 2 minutes left. I just want to say, thank you everybody for your time today, and it's great to see all these questions coming through. We'll make sure that they're answered and these resources are made available on the Sustainability Hub as soon as they can. So, yeah, to get organised ahead of survey season, which opens in September, there'll be much more training coming from Walmart. So watch this space for that.
I think I'll continue for the next 2 minutes and continue tackling as many as I can. CDP require emissions calculations be done per the SBTI? No. SBTI has its own criteria. Please report as much in terms of Scope 1, Scope 2, and if possible, Scope 3 emissions through CDP. The July 27th deadline only effective if you want to be scored. This is probably a good last thing to end with. Yes, you can report to CDP after that deadline, but please note that if you do so, 1, you will not be scored, and 2, your information in C4.3b will not link to Project Gigaton. So we strongly encourage you to report to CDP by July 27th. That way you will both receive a score and the information that you put in C4.3b will already be allocated, to use that word again, to the various pillars in Project Gigaton reporting, and that will hopefully make reporting, ESG reporting in general, much easier. Again, I'll download this Q&A. I will try to do the best follow-up that we can. Thank you again, as Chris mentioned, for your attention, for your engagement, and looking forward to a successful disclosure this year. So thanks a lot, and have a great day.